You know, some moaning old git said to me that this channel is just an old git moaning about how bad television is these days. Well, that's not fair. I've recommended lots of shows that I like. Recent shows like Detectorists and Veep, which are great. Current shows like Small Town Big Story and the brilliant Slow Horses. I was even reasonably polite about Yellowstone, although I've not watched any more episodes since I made that video. But of course there's good TV out there. And it made me think, what's the greatest of all time? What's the GOAT of TV shows? Well, commenting on another YouTube video, I said Chernobyl was the greatest TV show of all time, and another commenter asked why. Now, Chernobyl, if you've not seen it, is the story of the nuclear power station disaster in the Soviet Union in 1986 and how it came close to being very, very much worse. So here's why I nominate Chernobyl for the greatest of all time TV show. Well, first, there's the scale of the danger. In other TV drama shows, there's danger, sure. The plane might crash, the business might fold, the assassin's target might get shot. But in Chernobyl, millions could have died. Horrible radiation diseases would have affected millions more for decades to come. Whole swathes of the planet would have been rendered uninhabitable, possibly for centuries. It was a really big deal. My second reason for nominating Chernobyl as the greatest of all time is it's based on real events. Now, they used some dramatic license in the Now TV show. They've combined characters into one person. They've combined certain events. But what you see on TV is pretty close to what actually took place. And that's unlike all those dystopian future and science fiction shows out there. Now, some of them are okay. I watched one episode of The Last of Us, which stars a couple of throners. That's people who are in Game of Thrones, of course. It's like that game, you must play it, Potter Thrones. When you're watching TV, when you see someone who is in Harry Potter, you shout, Potter! And if you see someone who's in Game of Thrones, you shout, Thrones! For example, on Netflix, there's a new cold cases cop show called Department Q, set in Edinburgh. I've watched 3 episodes and so far I've spotted 2 Potters and 2 Thrones. But anyway, back to The Last of Us. I only watched 1 episode, but I can see why it's popular. I can see why people like it, even if it's not for me. But the point is, the situation there, it's all made up. Chernobyl isn't. It really happened. Third reason for Chernobyl, the production values. Terrific performances, sure. The scenes of the disaster itself are very convincing. The power station, the explosion, the fire, the panic. Then events in hospitals, including horrific scenes of people with radiation sickness. That awful, tragic funeral scene. But then the heroics, people fighting danger, fighting the bureaucracy. Every scene is stunning. Even the music, it's not even music, it's sort of like discordant sounds, but they really add to the atmosphere. I can't think of anything like it. But my fourth and overall reason for nominating Chernobyl as the greatest of all time TV show is that it shows the stifling reality of life in the Soviet Union. Everything's shabby, cheap and awful. The apartments, the offices, the hospitals, clothes, transport, food, it's all faded, tatty and grim. The whole system is based on lies and everyone knows it's lies. But if you repeat the lies well, you can get a great career. Repeat the lies well and promotion, rewards and status are yours. But if you tell the truth and everyone knows it's the truth, you're done for. And that's the looming threat that's hanging over everyone all the time. And altogether, I think it makes Chernobyl an important show because, you know, there's still idiots out there who think communism's okay. I read one estimate that said communism killed about 100 million people in the 20th century. And I don't think that's an exaggeration when you consider the Holodomor and other famines from communism, like the Great Leap Forward. Google it if you don't know what that is. And then the gulags, the killing fields, the Cultural Revolution, Tiananmen Square. But idiots still say, oh, they didn't get communism quite right. Can we have another go, please? No! You've killed 100 million people. Every time it was tried, it was a disaster. It doesn't work. Now, let's be clear. I'm not talking here about a, centre-left social democrat. They're fine. I'm not even talking about these people, you know the sort. People who say things like, well, I believe that anyone who has more money than me should be paying more in taxes. Yes, I do. Oh, aren't I marvellous? Aren't I a wonderful person for believing as I do that other people should be making greater sacrifice? Yeah, okay, I'm being a bit harsh, but we all know people like that, right? But I'm not even having a go at them. No, I'm pointing the finger at the far lefties who think the government should control everything. Everything should be nationalised. But governments mess up. HS2. But if the government controls everything, no one can oppose it. No criticism is allowed. No one's held to account. It always, every time, became a totalitarian regime based on fear, based on terror. I'm old enough to have seen East and West Berlin. I first went to Berlin in 1982 and crossed from West Berlin to East Berlin. East Berlin was meant to be a showcase for the communist system, but it was grim. Everything was falling apart. It was grey. It was dismal. The shops were just full of a long queue of people trying to get to the counter to see if they could get hold of anything. Whereas West Berlin was brilliant, prosperous, happy, great town. I went back to Berlin in 1990 when they were joyfully throwing off the shackles of communism. And my little claim to fame, I crossed into East Berlin through the checkpoint, but by then at the Berlin Wall they'd removed the minefields, they'd removed the barbed wire, they'd removed all the obstacles. People were even chipping holes in the wall as souvenirs. So my claim to fame is I crossed into East Berlin and then illegally escaped through the Berlin Wall into West Berlin. 6 months later, East Germany finally collapsed. But anyway, you can't go back to East Berlin as it was, but even today, look at Korea. Both parts of Korea have the same culture, the same history, the same language, but North Korea is an absolute hellhole, a brutal dictatorship, whereas South Korea is booming. This television was made in South Korea. My daughter's car was made in South Korea. You've got South Korean stuff in your house. Everyone wants to go to South Korea. Or look at China, nominally still communist, but frantically building new coal-fired power stations, polluting, oppressing with whole strings of prison camps, and no one's allowed to demonstrate. No one's allowed to protest. But if you don't want to read about East Germany and all the other failed communist states, and you don't want to visit the two Koreas, and you don't want to go and protest about climate change in China, I wouldn't blame you, you wouldn't last long, well, just watch Chernobyl. It'll tell you all you need to know about communism. But aside from that, it is great TV, brilliant drama. You won't forget it. It's on Now TV, Sky Atlantic. Watch it now.